Ladies and gentlemen, from the golden age of heroes and pulp adventure to your screams tonight, it's time for the real story. Some folks chase the future, some folks dig the past. James digs up the heroes that the years ran right past. Dust off all the legends, hear the battle cry. Golden Age adventures coming back to life. It's creator, it's author, it's world builder. James L. Richardson.
Well, hey everybody, I thought I'd do something a little different tonight. I've got some work that I have to do, and I thought I would talk to you about building a universe while I build some flat pack furniture. So, this is I call it a fridge stand. I have no intention of putting a fridge on it, but that's what it's called. I just got it the other day, haven't opened it yet, haven't done anything with it. Thought I would go through the whole build with you, and while we're doing this, I will tell you all about what's going on with public domain superheroes. And in this case, I think tonight we'll talk about what I'm doing about the mechanics of superheroics. Superheroes have superpowers, right? So they can do amazing things. They can shoot fire, they can shoot ice, they can lift cars, they can do all kinds of stuff. But human beings can't do that. And there's nothing in our history or our science that says that we're ever going to be able to do that naturally. It's just not part of our makeup. So, how do I get superheroes? In the comic books, they do it a bunch of different ways. There's formulas, and there's magic, and there's all kinds of different things. I decided on 3 simple pillars. There are heroes with magic, and magic is a core thing to Earth alone. This is part of the whole way that my universe works. And sort of the point that everything spins on is that Earth is the rock of eternity, and beneath, between, somehow trapped beyond Earth, beyond the rock of eternity, is all the magic and all the elder gods of the galaxy, put there by the Empire of Mongo, long, long ago, and sort of shut up there in hopes that they could just ignore it, forget it, and never deal with it again, because their technology just can't handle magic. So everywhere else in the galaxy, there's no magic. But here, because of the Rock of Eternity being sort of the cork and not being a perfect one, it has given us magic on Earth. Now, that being said, that takes care of Captain Marvel. That takes care of future heroes like Dr. Fate and the Spectre and Mandrake the Magician and a few others that have magic. That's great. It also has to do with the overarching plot and how my universe will proceed from beginning to end, and all that entails. And it's very important. But it's only one pillar. It's only one way that things get done. Now, the other way that things happen is that in the Empire of Mongo, there are any number of planets where creatures like humans, or maybe not like humans, have incredible powers and can do things that human beings can't. The Empire of Mongo might well want to stay away from Earth, but like everything in life, nothing is perfect. So they have interactions with Earth that maybe they don't want, or maybe they didn't intend. So for whatever reason, there are occasions where the various races of Mongo, of the Empire of Mongo, interact with Earth and bring those powers to Earth. Now, you can't see it here because it's above me, but the corkboard above me has a group of 13, so far, planets where various superhero type powers come from. And I'm going to talk about all of those. I'm going to bring that down and show it to you in a minute because it's kind of cool and I think it's kind of neat. But what it means is that so when you have something like fire powers, I have a character called the Flame, who is Gary Preston from a defunct comic book company from the 40s. He's a public domain character. He shows up in the Marine Moon of Mongo. He befriends Crash Corrigan, who's the main character. And the Flame, as the name might suggest, the Flame has flame powers. In this case, his powers are a little extreme. He can control flame and he can teleport through flame, which is a special thing that I've decided that being such an unusual power is something that's specific to the royal family of his planet, and that the regular populace of that planet can do things with flame, but the teleportation is specific to the royal family. But that's how this works. So all of the heroes, all of the villains, all of the things that you can imagine from comic books that have extraordinary powers all come, in my universe, from alien DNA, from the Empire of Mongo, in one way or another. And every time something shows up, I have to go back and I have to figure out, okay, well, if this character can do X, Y, Z, what planet did his DNA originate on? What are the powers there? How does it work? How did it get here? And that's part of the fun. That's part of my joy of doing this. I love doing this. This here that you can see above me is my current warboard. This is everything that is currently published or in progress. And as you can see, there's various colored cards. The green ones are going to disappear because I've decided to, for the moment, I'm going to actually shutter the House of Dread and retool it. So these green cards, the Shadow of Tanagara, the Gauntlet of Naboo, Cape and Cane, which is only in progress, and Snakes and Ladders and Nevermind are going to be reshuffled into either Justice, Entropy, or Crom. In all the cases here, it's actually Crom or Justice, because Shadow of Tanagara, the Gauntlet of Naboo, Cape and Cane are all very swords and sorcery, and Snakes and Ladders and Nevermind are very superhero. So it's pretty simple. I'm actually just started just tonight, The Martian Monsters of Mongo. It's the John Carter story. If you've read my first science fiction tale, you would know that I have written a short story that introduces Buck Rogers, Crash Corrigan, and John Carter, along with Wilma Deering, who is Buck Rogers' maybe girlfriend, maybe not, we don't know. And then that short story ended with the three of them being shot off into space or time or wherever, they don't know, and they end up in different places. So Crash Corrigan ended up on the Marine Moon of Mongo, and Wilma Deering and Buck Rogers ended up in the city planet of Theopolis. And they've had their adventures. Buck Rogers was in the metropolis of Mongo, and Crash Corrigan was in the Marine Moon of Mongo. John Carter will show up in The Martian Monsters of Mongo, and he's coming. I have a great tie-in with not only John Carter type Martians, so the Tharks and Deja Thoris's people with the red skin, but also H.G. Wells wrote about Mars and Martians. He's got the tripod Martians that you may be familiar with from War of the Worlds. All of that, I have put it all in a blender, and I'm going to bring you a story. And I've already introduced those Martians in the Rock of Eternity, the Challenger papers, which is up here. And there's more to come with Challenger as well, but that's where that comes from. Now, all that being said, the third pillar is a little bit of a cheat. We have a lot of heroes and villains who have a lot of strange technology. Boxing glove arrows and guns that shoot freeze rays and all kinds of weird stuff that is technological rather than biological in terms of power. And again, I have to figure out a way to explain that, at least enough to be believable. So I've decided that anytime I run into a beyond belief style of technology that, again, is directly influenced directly from our friends in the Empire of Mongo. So anytime there's a technology, and now I don't have Iron Man in my universe because Iron Man is never going to hit public domain before I die. But there are characters with that sort of level of technology. So those characters will have that kind of background. There will be that kind, they found the technology in a meteorite, or somebody gave it to them because it was in a box in their uncle's study, or who knows. We'll figure that out as we go. Obviously, that's a storytelling dream, right? I know where all the funky technology comes from. I don't have to go searching for it. I already know. So that's where we're at. That's how all this works. Now, that being the basics, how do I implement all that? What do I do? Well, there's a lot of fun characters who have a lot of interesting backstories, right? You've got characters that have powers that are extraordinary. And extraordinary powers, to paraphrase a little Stan Lee, with extraordinary powers come extraordinary explanations. You need to have a way that all this works as a unified theory of everything. It at least has to make enough sense that you as the reader don't come to me and go, James, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. This guy can't have this power because you just said over here that this is how this works, and his works exactly the opposite. So I have to have this is why I have the boards. This is why I have these sort of mechanisms to keep me honest. And it's a matter of, taking what's out there in the public domain today and using it, because I have to write stories, and I want to write a story a month, and I want to get, I'm trying to make a living at this. Not making enough money to do that, by the way, buy a book. So with all those characters that are out there, they need explanations, and that's fine. They need those explanations, and I'm happy to do that. But I also have to keep an eye on the characters that are coming, the Supermans and the Hawkmans and the Dr. Fates and the Captain Americas and all the rest of it. So, here's how all this works. And it might be a bit spoilery. So, if you're averse to spoilers, I happen to be, you can stop. You can stop watching, because what I've told you now is basically mechanical. But what I'm going to get into as I build this insane thing that I've put myself up to, as we go, I'm going to tell you about how some of the characters work and where they get their powers and how that affects the universe in the future. So in some cases, I'm going to be talking about characters who are not here yet. And if you don't want to know, if you don't want to be spoiled, if you want to enjoy the stories as they're released, this is a good place to stop. Well, all right. I think I've got a handle on this. It's fairly simple. It's flat pack furniture. It's never that complicated. But like everything, it's good to read the instructions first just to be on the safe side. And I have done that. So I got a pretty good idea of what we're doing here. That being said, while I'm putting these screws in, I'll tell you all about things like the gods. Remember I said... Yikes. Remember I said that Mongo is afraid of magic, and they're, they trap magic behind Earth, beneath it, or, beyond it, however you want to put that. Here's the thing about that. They had to do it. So they had to, their history is that in the process of becoming this massive empire that spans the galaxy, they ran up against magic, and magic was very difficult for them to deal with. They couldn't make heads or tails of it. But in the empire itself, as they expanded, there was a great deal of power. There were these beings that had great strength, had great technological ability, great ability to control fire, ice, whatever. All these things that are going to eventually play into Earth also existed in the Empire, and they used them. So those characters, those planets with all those great powers, are the basis for what we have on Earth. And I've used something that you might be familiar with from television, and it might give you a bit of a chuckle, because I've used Ancient Aliens as my model for how all this actually works. In the Ancient Aliens idea, they want us to believe that, and I'm full disclaimer, I don't buy Ancient Aliens for a minute, because right off the bat I have one real problem with it. If Ancient Aliens came to Earth and they gave us all this technology so we could build these great grand things that are beyond apparently the abilities of our Stone Age ancestors, why didn't they give North and South America the wheel? This to me is it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if, super intelligent aliens came and helped us, they didn't give North and South America the wheel. They gave everybody else the wheel, but they didn't give North and South America the wheel? That seems like a missed opportunity there. Anyway, regardless of how I feel about Ancient Aliens as an idea for real history, it's a great storytelling mechanism. It's fantastic, and it has lots of fun ideas about how history works and where humanity came from and where we're going and all the rest of it. It's great, and I love that, and I'm using it, and I'm using it unashamedly, because it's a great narrative. It really is. So here's how this works and I will never, that I can imagine, go back and do a full story like this that I'm going to tell you right now, because it's a little too much history essay. But it makes for great storytelling while I'm making furniture. So, in the long ago, back when manga was young and the universe was pure, they managed to trap all the magic. Well, how did they do that? Well, they sent their best and brightest, their most powerful warriors against the elder gods, and the battle happened here in our prehistory, long before man, long before any intelligence arose on Earth. And each of those warriors who came to battle the magic were trapped here as well. And those warriors, because they were trapped in a semi-magical prison, along with the actual magic that they'd been fighting, those warriors became what we now consider gods in history. So the pantheons of various mythologies, the Greek mythology Zeus, the Norse mythology Thor, Egyptian mythology Set, whoever, all of those figures from historical mythology are all based on, or actually were, aliens who came to Earth to battle the magic that they eventually trapped here, which kicks off how my universe works. See, there's a plan here. So, when that happened, those gods are flesh and blood beings that are actually, they have wants and needs, they eat, they sleep, they drink, they poop, they procreate, and all of that puts alien DNA into the mix. Now, for the purposes of my storytelling, I make sure that there's levels and there's various things. Just because you're born with alien DNA does not mean that you become a superhero. You don't automatically, it just doesn't work that way. So if you have the DNA of a race that can control fire, just because you're standing next to a candle doesn't mean that you automatically can control it. There has to be an in-story mechanism to explain why and how powers happen. Otherwise, everybody would be Captain America. It would be boring. It would be extremely boring. Nobody wants that. Nobody is interested in a universe where everybody has superpowers. There's a great line in The Incredibles where Dash is told by his mother that everybody's special, and his response is which means that nobody is. If everybody has superpowers, then superpowers are meaningless. Now, what does all this mean for the characters that I'm dying to get to? I want to get to Superman. I want to get to Captain America. I want to get to all. Spoiler alert. This is where you want to stop watching for sure if you're into spoilers, if you don't want to know anything about spoilers, because I'm going to tell you all about the big guns, who they are, and how they fit into my universe. And that means I'm going to be talking about, you know who, big old Superman. Now, Superman, I can't use Superman until 2034. And when I can use him, he can't fly. Now, what good is a Superman who can't fly? Well, he was like that for a long time. He was like that for the first 4 or 5 years of his existence in the comics. He was basically a strong man who had bullet-resistant skin. And they didn't really call it bulletproof, bullet-resistant skin. He could jump a quarter mile or an eighth of a mile, something like that. And he could lift great weights. And that was basically the whole power set. That was it. There wasn't anything else going on with Superman. He was, he was basically a strong man who could jump real far and was kind of bulletproof, sort of. And he fought villains that were not the villains we think of as Superman villains. He fought guys like slumlords and racketeers, and it was very much like if you've watched the George Reeves 1950s Superman show. It was very much like that in the early days, although George Reeves flew. But this is fiddly. The original Superman, as he was written in the late 1930s, early 1940s, is very different than the hero that you see on television and on the silver screen these days. I love it. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's the best iteration of the character. I cannot wait to take my idea of Superman and use him that way without all the overpower. To me, he's got too much power. If a hero can lift a planet, as much as I love Superman, and I do love Superman, a hero that can lift a planet is boring. I mean, what challenge is there? What possible challenge can you put to that character that's where, if there's a villain that can challenge that character, he's already killed the whole planet of Earth before we even start the story. So, my Superman is a lot less powerful than the one that you might be familiar with. And of course he comes from Krypton, and of course he comes from a high gravity planet. It's all the stuff that you're aware of. But what's interesting about that is if you think about Krypton, if you think about the basic powers of the strongman Superman, not the flying guy, but the strongman Superman, and you look at the rest of comicdom, you look at heroes like Wonder Woman, Captain America, a lot of these very strong characters. Our Man, perfect example. Our Man is basically Superman, but on drugs. He turns to Superman by taking miraculo pills or whatever it is that make him strong for an hour, because he's Our Man. But he's basically, when he's powered up, he's sort of a low-level Superman. Well, to me, the boat that's been missed on all of this is that why not give all of that the same font? Make it the same fountain of where all this comes from. It all pours from the same source. So, in my universe, and this is the spoiler, and I can't use this yet in terms of I can't print it, I can't make money with it, I can't sell it. But I can talk about it because we're just talking. All of my super strong heroes, all of them, have Kryptonian DNA. Not from Superman, not from his family, not from any of that. We're not doing, the weird James Gunn harem thing. I don't know what the hell that was all about. Anyway, what we're doing is we're looking at it as a historical fact. So, when Mongo was trying to suppress magic in the galaxy, they sent their greatest warriors to do so. Well, among those warriors would have been Kryptonians, and Kryptonians would have landed on Earth. Kryptonians would have been stuck on Earth with the backlash of the putting the magic people behind the magic prison. So your Hercules, your Gilgamesh, your all of these characters that have this historical massive strength, and there's a lot of them. Mythologically speaking, it's one of the go-tos. They all come from that same source of power, Krypton. And I can't use the name in my books yet. I can't use but I can talk about a planet where it's high gravity and super strong people live there, and that it was, in my case, I've already put this out there. If you read The Marine Moon of Mongo and you read between the lines and you take a look at what I've said in there, you will learn that the fate of Krypton has already been decided. It's already been talked about. It's already part of the history of Mongo. So, again, this is how all this works. So, your Captain Americas, your Hour Man, your all the, now Superman comes direct from Krypton, but all of your super strong characters, all of your characters with great strength, that I'll be able to use, and I won't be able to use characters like the Hulk. I won't be able to use the X-Men and all of, but all of the ones who will hit the public domain before I'm dead, that have super strength, all come from Krypton. All of the flame-based heroes all come from Pyrodania. All of the ice-based heroes all come from the same ice planet. All of the weather-based, you get it, right? This is how this works. Now, so that's a huge spoiler because this is my bread and butter here. I'm not gonna spoil the actual stories, but I'm giving you the mechanics of how this works because to me, this is the only other option is to write this. And honestly, it's fun to talk about, but to write it down as a historical thing is just not what I'm good at. It's not my forte. I'm not. I don't think I can do justice to it as an essay of this is how the history of Mongo works. I just don't have that ability. The next one, the one that I've actually talked about the most, and that is the planet of Tanagara. Now, Tanagara is an interesting case to me for a couple of reasons. One, Tanagara is where one of Ancient Alien's favorite aliens comes from, a group called the Anunnaki. Now, the Anunnaki historically come from Babylon, and the Anunnaki are these sort of bird people. They have wings and beaks and technology and all kinds of fun stuff. And interestingly to me, the Anunnaki are very similar to other historical characters like Horus and angels and any number of mythologically interesting things out there. I have decided they come from a planet called Tanagara. I started with Horus. Horus being the Egyptian god with the hawk head and the hawk wings, who is a hawk guy, who happens to be, unlike a lot of the gods, he's actually a little more modern. He's a little bit more 10,000 BC rather than millions of years ago when the galaxy was young. So he's a slightly different case, and he's chased to Earth from Tanagara because he's a rebel leader. He's a one who actually is fighting against the Empire of Mongo. And that puts him in the crosshairs of Mongo, and of course they send their best hunter, who is also from Tanagara. Tanagara is where some of the greatest warriors come from. And she follows him to Earth in the story of Swords in the House of Horus. You learn all this. It happened before the story happened, but this is their backstory, and this is where they come from. Now, they have this history between them of this rivalry, and because of their alien nature, they need technology to fly. They have wings, but the wings of a native Tanagaran are very weak by comparison to the way that you think of people with wings. They can't natively fly on Earth. It's just not possible. They can glide. Their wings are strong enough to allow them to glide, and they can use them for that in a pinch. But they're not really strong enough to allow them to properly fly. They use something called the element. And you learn about the element in a bunch of my books. You learn about the element in the first book, in The Element of Evil, shockingly. You learn about the element in Swords in the House of Horus. You learn about the element in The Shadow of Tanagara. Now, that's 3 books that I've mentioned this in. Kind of starts to seem a little important, right? Yeah, it's very important. The element is the core of some of Mongo's greatest technologies. It's what's called a transuranic element. It's got more protons than uranium, so it's nuclear powered. I have it doing things that are beyond nature, and it gives me excuses to do things like perpetual power. I have some great explanations of how it all works. It's also what's called a determinative metal. And if you're wondering what a determinative metal is, it doesn't exist. I made it up. Determinative metal is something that when you build something with it, when you create something with it, it takes into account the intent of the user. Oh yes, Tanagara. So, the other thing I've done with the Tanagaran scenario is I've given them a backstory that involves reincarnation. Now, if you're a comic book fan and you're listening to me, and you're hearing me talk about people with wings from a planet where they are able to reincarnate and they use an element that does some pretty amazing things, you might have an idea of what I'm talking about. You might. And I'll tell you right now that all of this stuff is, I'm skating very close to using things that are still under copyright. But all of these concepts that I'm talking about, winged people, various, all this stuff, that doesn't feel right at all. All right, well, says it's right, so I'm going to go with it. I'm using characters and concepts that are legitimately usable. I mean, there's nothing saying that I can't write a story about people who have experienced reincarnation. There's nothing saying I can't write people with wings. There's nothing saying I can't write about a transuranic element. All of these things are just concepts, and I'm not using the names that are in any way copyrighted. I'm not using any images that are copyrighted or trademarked. But again, if you're a comic book fan, I think you probably have a pretty good idea where I'm going with all this. And the fact that the whole project is called Public Domain Secret Arrows might give you a clue as to how I plan to continue this story in 2036 when I finally can. I love this part. I love doing things that are using characters I love, using concepts I love, in ways that are just legal. They're just okay, and I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not taking any bread out of anybody's mouth. All I'm doing is I'm working with some really fun concepts. Now, where's all this going? Well, there's more. When all of this becomes public domain and all of this gets out there, and I'm able to start doing things like teaming up Superman and Captain America, or the Flash and the Wizard, and many other things that I'm trying to do. That's where this starts to hum, and I'm building the runway right now. You all know this. Anybody that's watching this is aware that I am, in the process of building a massive universe, and I mean it's 10,000 years. It goes from 10,000 BC to today, so it's 12,000 years of human history, plus all that I've just talked about, all the prehistory with Mongo. You never know. I might someday decide to write that. I don't know. I don't think so, but you never know. But where does it go? Where does it go? Well, I have an end game. I actually do. I have a real solid, fully fleshed out plan. It's not on the board. Well, it is, but not a board you can see. Because that would be a spoiler too far. I won't tell you how I'm going to end it. Because that's not, I want that to be a surprise when it happens, and what I'm trying to do is seed it in such a way that the end is already in there. And if you're really paying attention, you might get an inkling of how it ends. You won't know, because I honestly don't think, I think it'll be a total surprise. But you've met some characters who will figure prominently in the end game. And I use endgame. I won't use the endgame name. I really won't, because endgame is a term that Marvel has forever and a day spoiled for movies and universes, and we can never use it again. So I'll have to come up with something different. But I mean, we're talking about the concept, not the title. There is an endgame. There is a final plan here. I do know how it ends. To me, that's important. I come from a long ago. I used to, before I was this guy with the bald and the beard and writing about superheroes, I used to be a big fan of a show called Lost. Lost had all these wonderful concepts and used these philosophers' names and historical names and all this stuff, and it seemed to be pointing to this amazing mystery of like, wow, I can't. And as a reader and a history buff, and somebody that loves a good, well-crafted story, I was enthralled. Unfortunately, it did not live up to that promise. It really didn't. In the end, it was not the story that I thought they were trying to tell, and nothing wrong with that. They were trying to tell a different story, and it wasn't the one I wanted, and that's their right. They can, art is not a democracy, people. You don't, just because I happen to be a fan doesn't mean I get to dictate how it goes. If you want to do that, you got to write it. That's simple as that. If you want to dictate how it goes, you got to be the writer. Guess who? But to me, the part of the biggest disappointment on Lost was that they kept saying they knew what they were doing at the end, but to me the ending was just so lame. It was so like, man, you could have done so much more with that than what you did. So I'm trying not to go there. I'm trying to give you a huge story that's going to be fun to read for a decade or 2 decades if I can manage it. And then it's going to end. And when it ends, it's not going to be with a whimper and oh, wow, that's okay. So, no, it's going to end in a way that you're going to watch and you're going to read, and you're going to put the book down at the end and you're going to say, holy, are you kidding me? He was talking about that 20 years ago. He had that figured out in the first book. And I did. I had it figured out in the first book. Not completely. I can't honestly say that I was absolutely 100% sure. And even today, I'm not exactly sure of every single part of how it's going to go when the time comes to actually pull down the curtain on this thing. I can't say that I've written the beats. I haven't written the dialogue. None of that. I've got the mechanism. I have the whole mechanism figured out. I know how it ends, and it's not going to end with everybody sort of looking at it and saying, "Oh, that was good." No, it's going to end, and everybody's going to look at it and say, "That was spectacular. That was, I can't believe he pulled that off," because I'm going to pull it off. It's going to be that good. I promise you. It is going to be so far beyond what you're expecting. And the final pieces of that puzzle are going to be so satisfying that you're going to want to go back and reread everything I've written to see all the stuff that I seeded in there, that I put in there 20 years ago, to flesh all this out. Honestly, it's that good. I keep seeing the end happen in my head, and every once in a while I get a new addition to it. I get a new little flourish that I want to add to it, but the basic concept has been there from the beginning. I've known since the start of the first book how the universe started, how the universe will end, and why. It's not just how, it's why. I have characters in place, characters coming, and all of this stuff that I've been talking about, all of these mechanisms, all these things that I've been hammering on about, the magic and the tech and the DNA and all of that, it all figures in to one single planned beginning, middle, and end. It's on the board. Well, okay, it's not on that board because I wouldn't let you see it if it was. But it's out there. It's in my head, and I can write it tomorrow. For instance, if let's say something was to come up and I knew that I wasn't going to live long enough to finish the story, I can finish the story tomorrow. I can write the end tomorrow. So barring a cataclysmic meteor impact, if you buy into my universe today, the one thing I can promise you is that before I die, barring accident or disaster, as long as I have a month's warning about dying, whenever that might happen, I'm not looking to happen anytime soon. As long as I have a month's lead time, I can write you the final. I can write the finale, and I can end the world in a nice, satisfying way. So don't worry about jumping in. It's all here. It's all here. I have it. I'm ready to go with it at a moment's notice, and I will be. I take care of it. I love this universe. This universe is. It's as important to me as anything I can think of in my life. Honestly, I love this universe. There is nothing in my life that is as important to me as this is. So rest assured, if you're a fan or if you're thinking about jumping in, you're not jumping in to something half-assed. I got my whole ass in here. I got my whole ass in. It's fully assed, guys. flat pack furniture, stage 1 complete. And it's on its little wheels. So that's lovely. Finish the little cart that goes underneath it. So yes, I hope you'll join me on this journey. It's a journey of some great fun ideas, some great fun heroes, some great fun villains. But there's more coming, and as you've just heard, there's there's a great line in one of my previous discussions with another author the other day, where we were talking about all this, and I told you that if you're listening to me talk and you hear me reference something and you think, is he talking about so-and-so from such and such? Yes, I am. That's who I'm talking about. I may not be able to use them yet. Probably can't. The heroes that I can use I'm using as much as I can, as often as I can. The heroes I can't use, heroes like Superman and Batman, Wonder Woman, and all the rest, they're under warranty. They're under warranty. They're under copyright until they aren't. And even then, if you're out there thinking of doing something similar, by all means, I'd love to see it. Let me know. I want to hear about it. But be aware that when a character like Superman comes out of into the public domain out of copyright, he comes into the public domain the way he came into the world. So, again, I mentioned earlier, in the case of Superman, we're talking about Superman with no flying powers, no heat vision. He's not able to lift the planet. He's a very strong guy who can jump a quarter mile or an eighth of a mile, lift a car, but he's not the Superman of current modern film storytelling. He doesn't fly. He doesn't have heat vision. He doesn't have cold breath. He doesn't have the ability to travel in time. He doesn't, all of that stuff. He's just a really strong guy. So if you're thinking about doing something like what I'm doing, by all means, go for it. I'd love to see it. I'm always interested in other people's ideas that are similar but different to what I'm doing. But be aware that when you do that, you have to respect that later creators added to that lore. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't add to it yourself. And I have every intention of making changes, and do make changes to the lore of characters as I go. So, for instance, let's take a flyer on. Green Arrow is a great character who I happen to be a fan of. Green Arrow is basically Batman with a bow and arrow. He's very similar to the Batman type character. He's a rich guy who has skills with the bow and arrow and goes out and uses them to fight crime. Well, I have a planet full of forest-dwelling aliens who are exceedingly good at acrobatics, who have extreme ability with hand-eye coordination. Basically, they never miss. Now, again, this particular planet is something I can't use yet because it's part of the Flash Gordon mythology. And I can't use those characters because the characters in question are part of that copyrighted mythology. So until Flash Gordon becomes public domain in 2030, I can't use this particular planet, I can't use the concepts, and I won't, because that's the law. But when Green Arrow hits public domain in 2036 or 37, I can't quite remember, that particular planet, those particular concepts will be long in the public domain, and I'm going to meld the two, because I'm going to give Green Arrow a backstory with a little bit of alien DNA. The one character I'm not doing that with is Batman. Batman is pure. Batman is the pinnacle of humanity. He does not have any alien DNA. He is not in any way superpowered. Which is very important to me personally. I love Batman. And I cannot wait to give you Batman as he was originally conceived. It's going to be a hoot to do so. I am really looking forward to that that moment. That's going to be a blast. Yeah. There we go. Now, so in the end, I'm just about done, by the way. In the end, I have told you all about superpowers, magic, and technology, and how all of that impacts my universe and why. And we're done. Well, 2 screws and we're done. I hope you've enjoyed my ranting and raving and rambling. If you have, please go to pdsh.ca and buy a book. Buy 2, buy them all, whatever works for you. I'm also at Substack, which obviously if you're watching this, you're going to see it there. You're going to see this on YouTube as well. And amazon.com/author/james.richardson. So again, that's amazon.com or .ca or .de or whatever. But amazon.com/author/james.richardson. And ladies and gentlemen, one so-called fridge cart complete. Ta-da! Oh, I'm very happy with that. That's great. Ta-da!